video we're going to be covering how to do a context menu. So the first thing you need to do is, as always, download the template for this particular program that we're going to be working on. So this is going to be the menu example. So for this one, you're going to find that there's already a lot of code written. So you will find we have a song class. This is just going to be the class that we're going to be using to store memory and just to manage the information in our application. You're going to find a main activity. Now the main activity will only have an onCreate with a button. And we're going to see here is the corresponding layout. It's just a simplified version of what Spotify does with the playlist. So we're going to have just a little label and a button that will take us to the second activity. The second activity is going to be a list activity for the playlist, and we have here a set of songs that are going to be created in runtime in the application. This is going to be a list activity, so it's going to be having a list. So we're using a element adapter here. So we're using a 2-element adapter. So we have to parse the information in our list to a map that contains the information. So it's gonna have each element on the map is gonna have the name and the artist with this as being the keys. Then we have the keys and then the layout that will correspond to each key element. So everything that comes in song is gonna be rendered in a text1. Everything that comes in artist is gonna come rendered in text2. And then we pass the new simple adapter to translate this data using the context, the data that we have in our list of maps. Then we have the layout. We're going to be using the one provided by Android, that is the simple list item 2. It is simple, two text views. These are the names text1 and text2, and that's why we're using it here as text1 and text2. Then we pass in the keys and the corresponding layout like this, and that will parse our data into a particular list that contains 2 elements in the list activity. Now, one more thing that you will find is that we have here an already created menu layout file. So you can find it here. Here I have 2. I'm just going to be using one of them for this video. So this is where you're going to define your context menu. Now, to create a context menu, the first thing that you need to do is go to wherever you have a list activity or a list view. In this case, it's going to be our list. And then you want to tell Android that you want to have a context menu for this activity. So you use the register context menu and you pass in the reference to the list view. In this case, we have a list activity, so we can simply use the getListView method. Now, once we have that, we have to override 2 methods from the activity in order to create the context menu. So the first one that we need to override is going to be the onCreate context menu. So we're gonna look for it. Create context menu. And then the second one is going to be the one on item selected. So that should be on context item selected. And we're gonna see how each one of them work. So the first one we want to do is override the on create context menu. So on this one, what we're gonna be doing is rendering the menu itself. So we're gonna need a menu inflator to inflate the layout for our menu. You can simply get menu inflator to get an instance of it, and then we're just gonna inflate the layout that we want to use for our menu. So in our case, it's gonna be menu activity playlist. and then you pass in the menu, the context menu that you're receiving from the onCreate menu as well. Now that will take care of rendering the menu itself. Now we want to actually respond to the clicks on that menu. So it's gonna be a pop-up menu whenever you select it, and it's gonna have options. So this is going to be the method that you use to actually respond to those events. So it is effectively the on-click listener of the context menu. So the first thing you need to do is get the menu itself, and here I'm just gonna set it to true. I don't need to call the super, so let's just return true for now. And the first thing that we need to do is to get the information about the item that has been selected. So for that one, we're gonna have to use an adapter view, and this will have an adapter context menu. This is going to be the object that will give you the information about what was selected. So for this, you just say item dot get menu information. Now this needs to be cast, so we're just gonna add the cast here. And then we can get the position of the option that was selected by just saying info.position. Now just keep in mind, this is the position on the element in the list that was selected. It is not the position of the element, or is not the array itself. So this is just corresponding to the list itself. So what we want to do now is see which element was selected. So for that one, we're gonna be using item dot get item ID, and this is going to be the option itself. So here we're gonna have to create some menu options. So as you can see here, we have our menu, and we already have 3 options. So we have the see option, play option, and delete option. So these are the ones that we're gonna be using in this switch. So let's go back to the playlist. Then the first case is going to be r.id dot see option, and in this one we're gonna get some information. So now we can use the ID itself that we got here on the position of the element in the array list, not in the array list, in the list view, to get the corresponding element in our array, or our data array. So here we're gonna get the position, or the element at that position, and then we're gonna get the details string. So see option is gonna be just an option to see all of the details of the element. Play is gonna be playing the element, and delete is gonna be deleting the element from the list. So once we do this, we're just gonna be using a toast for this. You could also use a dialog. So we need to have the context, I'm gonna have the details string, and then the toast dot, let's make it a short one. Don't forget to call show. And that's it for that option. Now since we're doing 3 options, then we're gonna need 2 more cases. So the next case is gonna be rid.play. The reason I named them as option at the end is just a convention, because that will differentiate other type of resources. from the menu options themselves when you're doing it in the code. So it's just a little bit easier to differentiate between a play button or a play ID for something that you're using on the UI from an option that you're using on the menu itself. And then the last one we have is going to be the delete option. Yeah. Okay. So when we're doing the play, we're gonna be doing something very similar to the previous one. So it's gonna be play. And then we're just gonna show a message that we're playing the song. So let's just use concatenation here. Now playing, and then the song itself. Now the delete option, we're gonna be doing a couple things. So first we can, well, I can actually refactor this because we're using it. So S. So let's get the song here, and we just reuse it rather than going to the array every single time. Now what we can do is first remove the position or the element that is in that position from the array. Then we're gonna refresh the adapter. So if we were using a simple array adapter rather than a simple adapter, we could just remove the position and then notify the adapter of the dataset change, so it will refresh it. But since we're using this adapter where we're actually using a transformation of the original data array, so we're using this list item with the maps of elements rather than the original data, we have to actually do this transformation and then pass it into the adapter for it to be refreshed. Otherwise, we're deleting it from this songs array on the top, but we're not deleting it from this list item map that is the one being used for the adapter itself. So for that reason, we're just calling the set to element adapter here, which is going to be refreshing and updating this particular array with the data that we have in the songs array, and then it's going to set the adapter and refresh it itself. Now, I also like to call the notify of data change. So this is going to be a method from the list view. So you get the list view, you get the adapter, and then you call the method notify dataset change. Now, in order for this one to work, you also have to do some casting to a base adapter. And that should be it for that one. So let's just put a break, just in case we eventually want to add more options so we don't forget. If you don't have code here for a particular option, then clicking on that option will just do nothing. You could also make this into a method if you wish to. I'm just putting it here because it's a very small piece of code, but you could create 3 methods and just call them here. Now let's close whatever I was running, and then let's start our application. Now, one thing that you can work on to make this a little bit more complex, or if you just want to try it out I have a method here called the setAdapter that is using a simple array adapter rather than the two element adapter here. So one thing that you can do to practice a little bit more and see how all of this works is modifying the adapter that you're using here. So instead of using set2element adapter, you'll use setAdapter, and then just modifying the code in your context menu to work with that adapter. Most of the functionality will remain the same, but you will find that there's some things that do not work once you change that, so you will have to make some small changes to make that work. The build process for our app is taking a little bit longer than usual. Okay, now that's completed. So we should be able to see our app in the emulator in a moment. Okay, here it's opening. So let's see what we have. Okay, so as you can see, this is just the main activity. I just have a C playlist. So here, this is what we're rendering. Each element is being rendered as a two-part text views. So two text views here for each element. They correspond to the name and the artist. Just very similar to what you will usually see on something like Spotify. Now, when we long select on an item, we will see the context menu. If we just click on the item, right now we don't have an on item selected or on item click listeners, so it will do nothing. So let's just go here, long select, let's see the details. Here is our toast with that information. Then if we click play, we see the play toast, which is just what we expected. And then we're gonna have this last one, the delete. So as you can see, that deletes it. And let's just see the details from this one. And let's see the play from this one. Now, if something was done wrong here, so for instance, if we were not refreshing the adapter, this will still contain the 10 elements that were original, but when we try to see the details, since our songs array now is only of size 6, I mean 7, then when we're trying to get the position number 8, we're just gonna get a null pointer exception. So that's why you have to be careful that you're actually refreshing the UI, or you might end up just referencing an element that doesn't exist anymore. So that is it for the context menu. And if you want to try more, just try adding up more options, try adding just more complex functionality, and that's it for it. Thank you.